He's a liar, thief, and a diamond in the rough.
The diamond in the rough.
His voice is one of a kind and matches both his personality and design with perfection. And no, it's not Tom Cruise. But who could have voiced such an iconic character? Do you trust me? Let's find out. Before we start, don't forget to check out our Discord, our coffee page, and like, subscribe, comment, hit the bell, all the things. It really helps us out. Scott Eric Weinger was born in 1975 in New York, New York, and raised in southern Florida. Nice. Where my SoFlo viewers at? Hashtag Salt Life.
I was always a very hammy kid. And when I was in third grade, there was a career day at school, and there was a firefighter came, and a guy from the Miami Dolphins came, and, a lot of doctors and lawyers came. But there was an actor, somebody's uncle or something was a local actor. And he was telling us about his job. And I was like, wait a minute. So all those people on TV, you could just do that? Those are real people that just got a job? It like something clicked, and I went home and I begged my parents to help me get an agent or something like that. And so my mom used to play tennis with somebody whose kid did like commercials or catalogs or something, and she gave her the lowdown on how you get into it. And so I begged and begged, and they helped me get a manager, and I went on an audition for a toy commercial and got it.
This commercial was for Ideal Toys, which soon led him to roles in bigger productions like Police Academy 5, which is of course not to be confused with Police Academy 1984, or Police Academy 2, Their First Assignment, or Police Academy 3, Back in Training, or Police Academy 4.
I was very excited because I loved Police Academy movies, because I was 8 or 9 or whatever. And I got this part, and it was really just like, I'm a kid on a raft, and there's a shark about to eat me. And then Tackleberry shows up and points a gun at it and says, leave the swimming area now. The shark turns around and swims away. And somebody told me, or maybe I was clever and figured it out myself, that if I screamed, help, it's a shark, then I would get in the credits. I would have a line. And so I did. I was like, help, it's a shark. And that's how I became Shark Attack Kid.
His next big production, which had a significant influence on him, was a 1988 miniseries.
I got the part of Ernest Hemingway's middle son, Patrick, in this miniseries about Hemingway. It was this, Stacy Keach played Ernest Hemingway. It was this immensely expensive miniseries that they used to do in those days. I guess now it would be a limited series, they're expensive again. But, and then, so I played Patrick Hemingway at this particular age, 11, 12, which would have been, I guess, in the 1930s. And anyway, we shot it down in Key West at Ernest Hemingway's house. It's a museum, with velvet ropes and stuff and like docents and curators or whatever. But for that moment, this like brief magical moment, they took the ropes down, they dressed the set like it looked in the old days, which, by the way, a lot of the original furniture and things are still there, and I just lived there basically, like if I would get tired, they'd say, go up to Papa's room and take a nap. And I would go in Hemingway's bed and take a nap, and I would go swimming in the pool. And which is crazy, you can't swim in that pool. It's like, it's a museum. And but I had this really weird metaphysical day, and it was in the 1987 maybe. So he died in 61. There were plenty of people there who knew him that were still alive, that worked for him. And I remember somebody said to me, a lady who worked there said, oh, you sit in this chair at the breakfast table. This was Patrick's chair. It was really weird. And then, but then his little guest house, which is like the pool house where he used to go upstairs and write every morning, which is still there and perfect. Like, it's amazing to see. But downstairs is a gift shop. And my mom bought me a bunch of Hemingway biographies and novels and stuff. And thus began a pretty weird, lifelong fascination with Ernest Hemingway that is still very intense.
After roles in Life Goes On and Erie, Indiana, Scott's big break came with a CBS sitcom in 1990. Because that's Hollywood, baby.
This was a show that only ran for a season. It was called The Family Man. And where I was like the wisecracking middle kid on, it was supposed to be one of these like TGIF things that went forever. And then but it was on CBS. And so we did a year on CBS, and then CBS didn't want it anymore. And I think it was going to go over to ABC, which is a weird thing that doesn't happen very often. And we were ready to start. Like the sets were built, season 2 was getting ready to go. And then there was some sort of, showbiz shenanigans and the whole thing fell apart.
Scott was not deterred, however, and soon he received an audition that would change his life.
My mom said to me one day, she's like, you have an audition after work for some cartoon. I was like, a cartoon? Because I didn't do voiceover work or anything like that. I was like, a cartoon? Well, I guess that's kind of neat. And went to the audition after work. And my secret weapon is always ignorance, like not knowing that something's a big deal. So I go to the audition for some cartoon and they're like, so here's a picture of the kid. This is what we think he's going to look like. And they give me the sides, there's little script pages that I had to read.
How old are you at this point?
I was probably 15. And they put it on a little music stand and I read it, and I could tell they were like intrigued. I could tell I was getting the call back. They liked my voice. And then they said, that was great. They said, oh, the only thing is this is a musical. So do you sing? And I like flat out lied.
I know, but someday and soon.
That's what they made you sing?
Yeah, by the way, they said, can you sing? And I lied.
That's a hard song.
Then I look over at all the people on the audition after a few bars and they're like going, like it was a catastrophe.
Like I came out of there and my mom looked at me like, I looked at her like, no. And she's like, I'm really proud of you for trying, because you're not a singer. You don't know how to sing. You know what I mean?
I love your mom.
Yeah, she's great. And, it was one of those things where, we just felt very zen about it. It wasn't meant to be because I'm not a singer, and then we went home to Florida because the show was finished and never, to return. And then they called me like 6 months later that I was still in the running and they needed to hear me again. And we were like, well, I'm in Florida. They said, well, just mail a tape. So I recorded a tape with my mom playing the genie. And we mailed it in. And my agent said, we're not sure about Scott's performance. It was a little bit bland, but mom was amazing as the genie. She played it like a Brooklyn genie, because he comes out of the lamp and says, oi, and he's complaining about his neck and stuff.
Yeah.
So, and my mom did that perfectly like a Brooklyn genie. And, but that tape is now, this is cool. That tape is now in the Disney archives. And they pulled it out. They found it for that movie that we made, the Aladdin.
Oh my God.
Well, Aladdin's interesting because I think he's a little younger than your traditional Disney prince. He's a teenager. I think they messed around with how old he should be, and then when they landed on my voice, they made him about my age. So when Aladdin came out, I was 17. I had just turned 17, and it seemed roughly the age that Aladdin was. But I think Aladdin was a lot different because he wasn't very princely. He was a scrappy street kid, and who had to sort of find the prince inside of him. So, and he had a lot of personality and a lot of moxie, and he wasn't comfortable with who he was. He didn't want to admit to Princess Jasmine that he was just some dude from the street, and he had to come to terms with his true self.
Buzz off. Okay, fine, but remember, be yourself.
So the key to being Aladdin was just being me in those days. The advice that the genie gave Aladdin to just be yourself was the advice that I had to take to play the role of Aladdin, because it was really just being me. I had a couple of rules when I was recording Aladdin. I always did it standing up so I would have more energy, and I drank a lot of water so my voice wouldn't get scratchy after screaming and yelling for 4 hours. One of my favorite scenes in the movie is after the magic carpet ride, after the whole new world, and they're in China and they're sitting on the roof of the Forbidden City or something, and they're just watching fireworks go off, like you do when you're in China. And Princess Jasmine catches him, and she says, "It's a shame Abu couldn't be here to see this." And Aladdin says, "Yeah, but he hates fireworks." And then he realizes that he screwed up. I mean, and I think that's a cute moment, and it shows how Aladdin can be a little dopey when he's falling in love, and how you can't pull one over on Princess Jasmine.
Scott's voice was perfect for the street kid. There was a kind of gentle sincerity to it that really matched Aladdin's personality.
Please! Oh, thank you, kind sir. I'm so glad you found her. I've been looking all over for you.
What are you doing?
Just play along.
You, know this girl?
Sadly, yes. She is my sister. She's a little crazy.
She said she knew the Sultan.
She thinks the monkey is the Sultan.
When it came to Aladdin, the way it worked was we all sort of recorded together initially. We would record so it would sound like more like a conversation, not individual lines sort of pulled out of the ether. But also In the beginning we all record together, and then as you get further down the line, it's just you fixing things and changing things and making small adjustments. But with Robin, he was a big improviser, which was part of the appeal. He would change his lines. They gave him free rein to make adjustments or throw jokes out there and say whatever he wanted, especially because the genie was such it was a morphing character who could basically turn into anybody that he wanted to. So anyway, we had to record a little bit together because if he would change his dialogue, I would have to adjust my dialogue accordingly. But the funny thing was there was a story that I would tell that in the recording studio, he was so funny that I fell down laughing. And I told that story at a press junket after the movie came out, and continued to tell it for years. And Aladdin came out more than 20 years ago. So I had told that story so many times that I could remember the story, but I didn't remember the actual occasion of me falling down in the studio. And I got to the point where I was like, did I make this up at a press junket because it sounded good, or did this thing actually happen? And when the DVD came out and the extras, they had the footage of me falling down laughing. So that made me very happy that it turned out to be a true story, that I didn't just make it up.
Like many official Disney voices, we're looking at you, James Woods. Scott has continued to record Aladdin in every appearance of the character.
There were 2 sequels that were like these home video sequels, Return of Jafar and then The Prince of Thieves. And Robin wasn't in Return of Jafar, but he was in The Prince of Thieves. He came back for the other one. And then we did like 100 episodes of this like animated series, like an after school, whatever.
And you did that.
I did all that. It was great. I mean, that stuff is really fun because with the original movie, every line is such a big deal. I must have said every word in that movie, every line in that movie thousands of times, just to get it perfect. But with the other stuff, it's a little bit more fast and loose, like we would record the show like an old timey radio show. All the actors would be sort of standing in a semicircle with the microphones.
That's the best.
So much. That was the best. So I continued to do, it's really funny because obviously I feel like my voice doesn't sound quite the same as when I was 17 years old, but I could still sort of get there. And so they'll call me and ask me to come in, not much since the pandemic, but now I've recorded every possible thing that a human being can say in English for them. So they can just pull it. My agent will call and they'll be like, they're doing this, commercial or parade or product or digital thing. And I'm like, great, where do I have to go? And he's like, no, they're just going to pull it. And like they just pay you. They have to pull it from a thing and then pay you as if you recorded it. So it's a great situation. But they hunt me down wherever I am, all over the world. When I was in Paris, they found me. They were like, they need you. It's urgent. I was like, well, I'm in Paris. They were like, they have recording studios in Paris, and the car showed up and took me to this recording studio, and I record. You know what I mean? Right. And that's happened all over the world.
Hey, whatever happened to predictability?
The milkman, the paperboy, evening TV.
Soon after he landed the role of Aladdin, he got yet another big opportunity. Steve Hale on Full House.
I was a regular in season 6 and 7, but season 5, I came in for one episode. It was like an episode where DJ wanted to go with like the hunky guy from school to the movies, but she was also babysitting the kids. So she takes the kids with her to the movies on the date with the guy.
I didn't approve of that.
No, and then you were very upset. That's just a violation of trust. But the funny thing is, in that episode, I was a guy named Steve Peters, and it was just one episode. And then I flew home to Florida where I lived.
To change your name for the next year.
Yeah, literally. And then what happened was, then the next year they called and they said, would you be interested in being like a regular on the show and being DJ's new boyfriend? And I was like, sure. And then I came back, and instead of being Steve Peters, I was Steve Hale. Obviously named after Boyd Hale. Was
Boyd Hale, one of the writers, yeah.
Everybody, this is Steve.
Hi, Steve.
One of the most interesting and famous episodes was when the cast went to Disney World.
Going down to Disney World for several weeks to record, to shoot those episodes was one of the highlights of working on Full House. It was so much fun. And, first of all, I was a teenager. I was 17 years old, I think. So I was exactly the right age where I could appreciate how awesome it was. You know what I mean? And the whole cast was down there, and I was, we were all very close with each other, and we had a lot of fun together. And and the Aladdin thing was just, it was really funny because it was just this inside joke because my character couldn't travel with the family to Florida. So DJ missed Steve so badly that wherever she went, she saw him in all the characters, whether it was Indiana Jones at the studio or Prince Charming. So they had me dress up in all these different characters, and one of them was Aladdin. And so it was funny. It was sort of a little Easter egg for people who knew that little fun fact. The funny thing is now, I'm an old guy. I go to when people say, when they introduce me to the kid playing Aladdin at the park now, we're not exactly the same age. But back then, I was exactly the same age as Aladdin, and probably younger than the guy in the park playing Aladdin. And so it was really funny. So to throw that wig on me in the Aladdin outfit, I could have probably done it for the day in the park, and nobody would have known the difference.
Scott played the lovable, bumbling, and always hungry Steve Hale all the way through the 6th and 7th seasons. But all things must come to an end. And when it comes to child actors, that usually comes with the introduction of college. For Scott, that college was none other than Harvard. The goofy and dumb Steve is actually a college graduate? Wow, he is a good actor.
So what are you saying? We should break up? It's a scary thought.
But yeah, Love on the Rocks, that was a sad episode. And the reason why Steve and DJ broke up originally was my fault, because I wanted to go to college. I had really enjoyed being a kid actor. It was really cool, but I was concerned about my future. And I deferred a year after high school before going to college. And then finally I was like, I think if you defer more than that, they make you apply again. So I didn't want to risk that. So I sat the producers down and I told them my plans, and they were very supportive. And next thing you know, Love was on the rocks.
But that was not the end of Steve Hale. Oh no.
So I was already in college when Full House, the final season, which we didn't know it was the final season. When I came, we didn't know it was the series finale. We just thought it was the season finale. And there was this whole storyline about how DJ got stood up. Her date to the prom couldn't take her. And so they came up with this idea that I would leave college, fly to LA, hide out in a trailer behind Stage 24. And it was sort of torture because I was dying to hang out with everyone on the set, but they wanted to keep it a surprise for the tape night.
Don't worry, I scrounged up another date for you. I'm afraid to ask.
Come on, Deeves, let's get going. I don't want to miss the buffet.
Steve!
When the door opens and Kimmy says, "Don't worry, DJ, I've got some other date for you," and I walk in, everyone was genuinely surprised. Nobody knew I was there, which was really cool. But I had to hide in a trailer in the back all day. It was a bummer.
And with Full House officially ended, Scott went back to college and graduated in 1998 magna cum laude with a degree in English and American literature.
When I got out of college and I came back to LA, it was just sort of I was like a robot. I was like, I guess I go back to LA and go back to acting and doing the thing. But it wasn't like a choice that I made. I just came out here and I wasn't enjoying it at all, going on auditions. And I was
terrific.
I hated it. And I was like, well, this is so weird. Like, what changed? I went to college and I come out to LA and I'm doing the same stuff I did before. And I hate it. I'm not enjoying it at all. Like, what happened? And, I didn't know the answer. And then I was very fortunate I started pursuing this writing thing, and I was very lucky to start working. And then once you start, success tends to sort of beget more success. And, and then you just find that you're always doing stuff.
And the stuff he was doing eventually led to writing on shows like What I Like About You, Privileged, 90210, The Neighbors, Blackish, The Muppets, and Gallivant. So he was really working that English degree. In 2016, Netflix had the crazy idea of making a Full House reboot.
When they called me and they said, we're going to do a reboot of Full House, and I don't even think it had a name then, and they said, we're going to do an episode, like a reunion episode, where we're going to bring all the old folks back. That was, I think they were more polite about it. They called us the legacy cast instead of the old cast. And they said, so they sent me a script and I had agreed to do it. And there was all this stuff about, I walk into the party and DJ says, "Hey, Steve, great to see you." And it's like, hey, there's her old boyfriend, Steve. And she says, "How are the wife and kids?" And I say, "Oh, they're fine. Sorry, they couldn't make it to the party." So when I saw the script, I assumed this was just one episode. It was just like a cute thing. Oh, there's her old boyfriend. And then I got an email from them later saying, "Hey, man, you were really funny at that table read. would you consider coming back for another one? I was like, yeah, sure. And then I get in another one and another one and another one. And it turned into dozens and dozens. It turned into 5 seasons of television. It was crazy.
Crazy successful, especially for a reboot. In 2018, he had an opportunity to produce a different show with Netflix.
I got a job in between Fuller House seasons. It was during Fuller House, right? And
Yeah.
it was in between seasons where I got a job. I was at a meeting at Netflix talking about, I had an idea for a show I wanted to do in Paris, like a rom-com that I had sort of had in my pocket for a long time. And then I heard that Netflix was doing like original language programming in other languages. And I was like, well, what if I pitch it as a French show? And then they can just get some French people to write it with me or whatever.
Just get some French people to write with me. That's going to be the little asset we use to promote this.
Just get some French people. But I went to Netflix, to the international team, to pitch this show. And I was like, so here's the thing. I have this idea. It's a rom-com. I want to shoot it in Paris. And I started explaining my background, my Paris problem. And they were like, wait, hang on. We have a show that's a rom-com that we are having some problems with. You know, would you be interested? It's one of our first original language French shows. Would you be interested in going and just sort of helping out? You know, seeing, you know, getting it on track. And I was like the road runner on my way to the airport. No, I was like, you know, I got to confirm that my wife will still be here when I return. But otherwise, why would I not want to do that? So smash cut to me being in Paris. We had a writer's room with a view of the Eiffel Tower. I was doing my rewrites at the Café de Magot. Like, it was amazing. It was the coolest. It was a really cool experience.
It is so interesting to study a person in their life and realize just how much their personality matches the roles they're famous for. Scott is no exception, and in watching his interviews, it's easy to see just how much like Aladdin he is, and in turn how much of himself he put into his character. We look forward to seeing all the cool stuff he continues to do, and Scott, if you're listening, may we pitch you discographies you could help write and produce? Thank you to these people for supporting us on Patreon and Ko-fi. And if you want to make sure this channel sticks around, you can check out our Ko-fi link in the description. Every bit helps. Thank you for watching this episode of Discographies. Click the thumbs up button below if you liked it. And if you want to be notified when the next episode comes out, consider subscribing and hitting the bell. Comment below with characters you would like to see us cover. Further reading and references are linked below. We hope to see you in another discography.